Hi, I'm Hazel. It's almost Saturday today, which makes it time to sit down and catch up with a brand new vlog. This week, a little light on news. They did update the amount of experience needed to level on the BfA beta from 111 to 120 by, what was it, 15% more XP per level? It was already a bit of a grind. It wasn't that bad. It was, I think, roughly about on par with what leveling in a new expansion has been, but it's definitely going to be a little bit more of a grind now. Not so much a problem for the first character, you know, there's going to be lots of time to get leveled up and get prepared before the raid opens anyways, but I'm curious to know if they're ever going to add something for leveling alts that's kind of on par with how effective Legion Invasions became for leveling alts. Because I have something like 10-ish characters that are mostly 110 by now just because of Invasions. I probably would not have gotten around to leveling them the old-fashioned way, and if it's going to be a 15-20 hour grind, maybe that's exaggerating. If it's going to be a while to do each one and there's not going to be an easier way to do it later, then that might, I mean, on one hand, it's a lot of time to level, but on the other hand, mission gold, you know? Oh, hi. Your head's there. You guys have cats? It's great. The other thing announced this week was the end of PvP season heads up. I don't think it was an exact date for the end of the PvP season, but they tend to like to give people a little bit of warning before they end it, but not right before they end it, because that's usually when they give you like an actual date and time. So based on that, it's looking like the patch date is more likely to be not this upcoming Tuesday, but the following week, kind of like the 17th, 18th, is looking like our more likely patch date. But it could be this next week. It could be later. It probably won't be much later than that, because at that point we're in under a month until BfA territory, which is terrifying. The other WoW post from Blizzard this week was the Duelers Guild preview. So that's a BfA feature that I haven't actually looked at too closely yet, and from the sounds of it, it's basically just like the Brawlers Guild, kind of, but with dueling. So less content, just dueling, but the same kind of concept where you have a bunch of people in an area, they can talk to an NPC to queue up, and then two of them at a time will go in and fight each other. And I believe there are rewards if you beat a certain number of people in a row. There's also an achievement for beating people from each class. And my curiosity with this is there going to be any kind of way to keep tank and healer specs out of it, or are tank and healer specs welcome? And if you are not one of those things and you duel into a tank spec, you're like, well, this sucks. Or like a healer spec, like what are healers supposed to do? I mean, obviously not duel is like step one, but if you are allowed to queue as a healing spec, are you just gonna go in there and run around? I mean, some healers can actually offensively kill people, but for the most part, you would be just running around managing your cooldowns and giggling, which, while hilarious, not very good use of anybody's time. May not endear you to all of the other people waiting around the Duelers Guild for their turn. So interested to see how that one pans out. From the sounds of it, there's not going to be any kind of MMR system, because it is just that whoever's in the area at the time, which should help keep queues bumping along pretty quickly. Although you will still have to wait for use in the arena, but it'll be cool to be able to watch people. I think they're trying to really recreate that kind of in front of Stormwind or Orgrimmar dueling feel, but in a situation where they can hopefully apply like PvP talents and stuff. As far as I know, I think that was it for news from this week. In my personal life, I've had some fish issues. So the short version of fish news is, first, I decided to name the honey Grommy Crummy, so that's cute, happy fish news. Less cute, happy fish news, the cherry barbs, we already had one die early, and they kind of kept dying and started to very rapidly look worse. So what I ended up doing was I got, and you can kind of see the edge of it over there, I got a 10-gallon quarantine tank set up. I separated them from the other tanks so that they weren't exposing themselves to the Grommy for any longer. It's hard to identify exactly what's wrong with them without like an actual microscope. They have all sorts of symptoms that could be a lot of different things, but they're isolated. We did some general medications. They've continued to die. We only have 3 left, and one of them hasn't eaten anything in a while. I really hope they get better, but they might not, and if they don't, I can sterilize that setup and then use it to quarantine new fish for like a solid month, just so that if anything new is sick, at least we'll find out about it before we put them in the big tank, so that's something. Are you chewing on me? You want to, okay. And then in WoW for me this week, I actually got my Stormheim Paragon Stormwing Drake. I finally got it, and I was really excited that I was finally done with Paragon mounts and world quests, and then I remembered that I still have one Army of the Light Alec left to get. I only have 2 of the 3 of those, so I'm probably going to need to keep doing that. It is world quest bonus rep week, so that is helping along with the Darkman Fair. Maybe I just pretend that there's only 2. Am I really going to ride the 3rd one? Questions from this week. Little King Gaming asks, what microphone are you using now, and why did you switch from your Blue Yeti? So I'm currently using a Rode NT1A microphone. It is an XLR microphone, which means that it is plugged into an interface to get it to connect to my computer because these use XLR cables. It's a nice microphone. I think it sounds pretty good. I switched from the Blue Yeti specifically because I had a Patreon goal back then, and I said if I surpassed that goal, I would upgrade my cameras and my microphone, and I just wanted an upgrade for the microphone, and this seemed like a good bet. Having said that, if you are using a Blue Yeti or considering buying a Blue Yeti and looking at the price difference, wondering if it's worth it, I would say it's not. I can very rarely tell a quality difference between the Blue Yeti and this one, so if you're in the market for a microphone, I definitely recommend the Blue Yeti still, as long as you can get it on a stand that's gonna hold it. This one is a great microphone, and I think if you were doing music recording, it would be more worth the money. But yeah, for YouTube, it's great, but it's not worth the extra cash. Sim Est asks, will there be a fish cam? So I'm assuming you're talking for the 20-gallon out in my living room. The answer is probably no, just because it's a little too far away. I did run a webcam to it for a while when I was trying to monitor it without being right there while I was working, but I have to run that through a USB extension, and the camera didn't really like that. It kind of worked, but it mostly didn't work, so probably no fish cam from there. But I do post a lot of fish video on my Instagram story, because then I can put it out there without feeling bad about just spamming it. Big Llama asks, any tips on getting that last Mage Tower phase in Resto Druid? Talking about having hot druids heal like if we were pallies. Yeah, it's really rough. So the biggest tip I have for getting through that is to be aware of what your cooldown options are, and then budget them out very carefully for that phase where you're trying to heal up the 3 dudes before they get to the middle. So make sure that you're not overlapping more cooldowns than you need, but you're also going to basically want to always have a cooldown running. So for what I did, and you can look back in the VOD, I did this on stream to see like the exact order because I don't quite remember, but I was using Tree of Life, I was using Drums, I also used Tranquility, and I put potions and the Essence of Gahanir in there somewhere as well. A couple of those had to be layered. I think I did Drums first and then Potion plus the Artifact buff and then Tree Form, but just have a plan for your cooldowns because it is very easy to panic and then use too many and then not have enough, and just make sure that you're rolling them very systematically, and that really helped for me. Disease asks, where did you immigrate from? I am from Canada, specifically the west coast of Canada. I'm from British Columbia. Chloe asks, where do you think BfA will rank in terms of other expansions? So expansion preference, I find, is always very personal. Different people will have different favorites for different reasons, not all of them gameplay reasons. Sometimes you'll remember an expansion more fondly just because it came out at a time when you had like a really good group of friends playing WoW and you all had a lot of time to play. For my personal rankings, my predictions so far is that it's gonna go Kata first because Kata was my golden years, followed by BfA, followed by Legion, and then Mop, Warlords, Wrath. And I didn't play the first 2. But that's just me. I'm kind of putting it there based on the fact that I really liked Legion, and I'm seeing BfA so far as being mostly a slightly improved Legion with a new story. I think it's just kind of Legion 2.0 with some slight improvements, so that's how I end up with that ranking. TMV Cafe asks, Hazel, I would like to know how you obtain your Blizzard information. You and a few others have inspired me to start doing a gaming stream. I would like to keep my followers informed like you do. By the way, I do give you credits in my streams as well, so thank you. I keep up on Blizzard stuff through, I think, all of the usual means. So the biggest 2 are MMO Champion and Wowhead news. They're usually very much on top of any new posts from Blizzard, any new hotfixes, any updates. Those are my major news sources. I also follow a good amount of WoW community stuff, both Blizzard employees and just community people on Twitter, so you get heads up through there. Sometimes it's just word on the street from like my guild or trade chat or whatever have you. If you're looking for like official information that's actually confirmed, your really safest bet is going to be Blizzard sources like worldofwarcraft.com and, you know, Blizzard Twitter. But MMO Champion and Wowhead have always been like my go-to news sites for sure. Sam Watson asks, hey Hazel, I have a new fish question. Do all fish tanks require electricity, or are there any filters that don't require a power plug? I'm toying with the idea of getting a fish, don't want to run a cord to the tank for a filter. So it is possible, but in most cases it's not. So there are 3 main things, just talking very basically, there are 3 main things that require power to a fish tank. The first one is the filter, as you noticed, and the filter is quite important. The main role, and not the only role, but the main role of the filter is to keep water moving over some surface area that beneficial bacteria can grow on, that process the toxic compounds of fish waste into something less toxic that the fish can live with until you can get it out of the tank with a water change. They also tend to keep the water oxygenated because those bacteria also need oxygen to survive. So the only way that I know of to run a tank without a filter is called the Wallstadt method. Diana Wallstadt has published a book on this method, and you can read about it online. And basically the premise of it is a planted tank with like a soil substrate and a ton of plants and very few fish. Just very light fish load, crazy plant load, and the plants also process the fish waste, so basically just having enough plants to balance that out. It is a tricky balance to get, and then the problem with that is that the second thing that typically needs a power source in a fish tank is going to be a light if you're planning on growing plants. And plants are kind of important to the Wallstadt no filter thing, and it's going to be hard to grow enough plants that are processing enough waste without a light, so that kind of kills your plan right there. The third common thing that requires electricity in most fish tanks is a heater if you're keeping any kind of tropical fish. There are cool water fish that don't need heaters, and then maybe you live somewhere that's warm enough that you can keep tropical fish without a heater, but they're usually a good idea to at least regulate the temperature so it's not going through crazy swings. So it can be done. It's not super likely that it's gonna go super smoothly for you. It's a little bit difficult to do, and I wouldn't personally try it. Fine asks, do you stream on Twitch or YouTube? I stream on YouTube. I used to stream on Twitch, but I like YouTube better for a couple of reasons, mostly being the quality. I can stream in 1080-60. It's more connected to my YouTube channel, which is already my job anyways, and I just like it there. The YouTube interface for navigating and finding streams is definitely the one thing that's like well below Twitch still. But you can always find my stream at youtube.com/hazelnuttygames/live, or if I'm streaming and you're on the page, it will just pop up and be fairly noticeable, I think. And you can also opt into notifications if you are into that kind of thing. So that's been my week. Thank you guys very much for watching. Let me know if you have any questions that you would like answered on a vlog, and I hope that you have a wonderful, wonderful day. Bye!